Welcome back, everyone. Now, today I'm absolutely delighted to welcome a very special guest onto the channel. His name is Nick Buckley, and Nick is the independent candidate for Mayor of Greater Manchester in 2024. Nick comes onto the show today to tell us why you should give him your vote and explain exactly what he stands for. Nick, good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation.
Absolute pleasure. Firstly, tell us a little bit about your background and I guess more importantly, why you've decided to run for Mayor of Manchester.
Sure. So my background's nothing special. I was a kid brought up on a council estate in South Manchester. No father in the home. Went to a failing school. It was failing so badly that my music teacher got stabbed 42 times in the chest for confiscating a porno mag off a student. That's how bad my school was. Drifted through my teens and my 20s, didn't know what I wanted to do. Didn't go to university. I had a place, but I cancelled it. I thought, what am I going for? I was drifting and I did a bit of traveling. It was a traveling around the world that sort of saved me. It made me grow up. It made me understand personal responsibility. And then in my very early 30s, I got a job at Manchester Airport, which changed my life. It was the first time I had a job that had a regular pay every month. Before that, I was always self-employed.
Yeah.
And then from that, I got a job at Manchester Council and fell into a career. And my career really was working with kids and stopping them getting involved in crime. And the reason why I was good at that is because I was one of those kids on those streets causing problems. I was never a criminal, but I was going down that path and could have easily have crossed that line.
I think a lot of us have, we're probably of a similar age. I don't know exactly how old you are, mate, but, I went to school, senior school in the 1970s. It was a rough, tough environment to be brought up in. I recognise many of the things that you mentioned there, and I'm sure, a lot of the viewers will. What's reading through your manifesto, there's so much there that resonated with me as an ordinary working class man. I feel that the ordinary, regular, working class British people right up and down the country, let alone in Manchester, we're just ignored these days. We just don't seem to matter.
Our politicians now seem to overcomplicate everything.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at reducing crime, politicians now will talk about it's ADHD related, it's single parent related, it's because of this, it's because of poverty. Let me tell you straight now, poverty has nothing to do with crime. It's all to do with culture and the way you're brought up. If you think being poor turns you into a criminal, then you're insulting hundreds of millions of poor people who are not criminals.
Yeah.
So how we tackle crime is we hammer criminals. That's what we used to do 50 years ago and 100 years ago. It's not complicated. But our politicians don't have the backbone now to do what we know that works and what the public wants. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, backbone is certainly something to be that seems to be missing in British politics at the moment. I mean, one of the things that I picked up on your manifesto, fix the police by turning them back into a police force. Great statement. How would you do that?
Yeah, exactly. Because we have police services now. They provide a service to the community. I don't want a service of the police. I never want to see a police officer unless I'm being a victim of crime, in which case I'd rather not be a victim of crime and you should have prevented it in the first place. That's why I want a police force. What our police do now is, I don't blame the frontline officers. They do what they're told to do.
Yeah.
It's far up the chain. So what our police forces, our police services do now is they sit and they wait for a phone call that a crime has just happened, and they'll come round, they'll take your statement, they'll take some fingerprints and they'll go away. That's all after the fact. I want police on the streets, hassling criminals, finding intelligence, putting plans together to catch criminals before they've even committed crime. And we don't do that now. Our police are reactionary instead of being proactive. So the first thing I'm going to do as Mayor of Greater Manchester, who is also the Police Crime Commissioner of Greater Manchester, our Mayor at the moment, Andy Burnham, never tells people that. He always pretends the police have got nothing to do with him. He's the boss of the police. So the first day I'm sitting down with the chief constable and I'm going to tell him what I want. And basically I'm going to say, if you don't like it, you're not on board, start looking for another job because I will fire you. He's the only police officer I can fire. and I will fire him if he's not on board until I get the chief constable who is on board. That's day one. Then I'll be looking at the training of police officers. We keep lowering recruitment standards all the time. We lower fitness standards. You can join now. You can join the police now in this country if you're a criminal.
Yeah.
How mental is that? I'm not talking about suspect. I'm talking about if you've got a long criminal record for certain offences, you can still join the police.
It's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah. If you're obese and you can't run, you can still join the police. If you can't speak English or write English, you can still join the police. We're allowing anyone to join, and we've reduced the recruitment standards. So we don't recruit on merit now. We recruit on box ticking. You're a woman, you can join. You're Muslim, you can join. You're black, you can join. You're in a wheelchair, you can join. I'm going to cancel all that day one.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure the people who pass the test and become police officers are the best people to become police officers.
Oh, I mean, music to a lot of people's ears, I would imagine. I mean, I've been banging on about police recruitment now for, I can't even remember how long, Neil. It's just been ridiculous how long I've been going on about box ticking and proper police recruitment. Let me tell you, I've got a friend who was a lifelong serving police officer. His son grew up wanting to follow in his father's footsteps, which is a way that, that's happened a lot in the past. Goes down from father to son. He fitted every single criteria and couldn't get a job. Frankly, he was the wrong colour. They didn't want him.
Absolutely.
Never mind the fact that he was perfectly qualified for the job and that his family's got a long history of serving in the police. Now, that's not the fault of anyone of colour. That's the fault of the system blatantly discriminating against someone because they don't tick the boxes. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I'd go one step further. I'd actually say it is a type of racism against black and brown people. It's the bigotry of low expectations. You guys can't get these jobs on your own. So therefore, we're going to treat you as a special case and we're going to recruit you anyway. How insulting is that? I've worked with lots of black and brown officers who were fantastic and amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they don't need special treatment. They're good enough by themselves, right?
They just need to pass the tests like everybody else.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're lying on an operating theatre, are you looking, as a black person, are you looking around going, I hope I get a black surgeon? Or are you saying to yourself, I hope I get a surgeon who came top of their class?
Yeah.
That's what you're hoping for. You're hoping for the best all the time. And that's what we need to bring back to the police.
And people of all races, creeds, colours and religions, we all need the same thing.
We do. We need to be protected from the criminals.
Exactly.
And I don't care who protects us, what colour, religion, sexuality they are. Exactly. I want protected because you know what? I'm paying their wages and I want protecting.
What's the local reaction been to yourself up there, Nick?
It's been fantastic. 99% of the comments I get and the interactions I get are completely positive. Unfortunately, I'm getting no mass media attention. So even I'm in a bubble at the moment. So if it's just based on social media, I'm going to win this election. But unfortunately, most of the people in Greater Manchester still haven't heard of me because I get no press attention. Yeah. So unless you're on social media, you don't know. But
why do you think you're not getting that level of attention that you should be getting in a fair society?
It's because it's not a fair society, and no society has ever been fair, and life is unfair. So I'm not complaining about this. I'm just stating it as a matter of fact. So the mass media look at me and they say, he's a nobody. He's not going to win. Why are we giving a nobody airtime? We need to be speaking to the Tory candidate. We need to be speaking to Lib Dem candidate. We need to be speaking to the Green candidate. We don't need to be speaking to small independents who haven't got a chance of winning. So I understand their thought process, but in a democracy, should we be penalising people who have put their head above the parapet because you don't think they will win? Who are the press to make those judgments that they don't think I can win? Their job should be supplying all the evidence to the public, all the candidates with all their manifestos, with all their ideas, and then letting the public decide what they want to do. They shouldn't be the gatekeeper of this information in a democracy.
Absolutely. You know, again, flicking through your manifesto, knife crime came up.
Yeah.
And, you know, tackling knife crime and offering neighbourhoods a vote on stop and search. Again, something that I think the vast majority of right-minded people would be on board with. Tell us a little bit more about the knife crime situation. I'm down here just outside London. I'm actually in Brighton, but I'm a London boy. London is, frankly, a bit of a hellhole these days. I'm not overly familiar with Manchester, but tell us about the situation up there.
Manchester is catching up to London. We're not as bad as London, but we are definitely catching up. There's stabbings in Manchester daily, being reported by the Manchester Evening News on a daily basis. On a couple of days ago, we had 3 people got stabbed in a local market. The next day, someone got stabbed in a bus station. A couple of days before that, a girl got beat up in a cemetery. The violence in Greater Manchester now is almost at epidemic levels. Again, not as bad as London, because your mayor is a lot worse than our mayor. Even though our mayor is bad, your mayor is a lot worse. So how do we tackle knife crime? So we know how to tackle knife crime, but our police haven't got the backbone or the bottle to do what needs to be done. And it's called stop and search. And yes, we will be stopping and searching more young black men. Why? Because they're more likely to be involved in carrying knives, more likely to be stabbed to death, and more likely to be the person who stabs somebody to death. So of course we'll be stopping more young black lads, but we'll be saving their lives because we're stopping them. And in the 70s, we started getting the race baiters in the 1970s saying stop and search is racist. So that piece of legislation now is tarred with a racist push. How do we get around that? Well, we get around it by going to those communities every year at the local elections, and we say to them, you're going to get a ballot paper every year in this neighbourhood, and you can tick if you want more or less stop and search. If you tick less stop and search, you get it. If you tick more, you get it. Yeah. And when the police are stopping your children and stopping mainly, quite a lot of young black lads, and the press are calling them racist, the answer is, no, excuse me, the people who lived in this area voted for this, because every parent I ever speak to, black, brown, it doesn't matter, wants their children to be safe and don't mind their children being stopped and searched, because they know that's how you catch the criminals. Yeah. There's no touchy-feely nice thing about this when you go, my son doesn't get stopped and searched. Well, that's fine when he's dying in pools of his own blood. How do you feel then? We've got to crack down on knife crime. And how you crack down on it is we start stopping and searching people in certain areas at certain times. That will send the message out to the whole community. I better not carry a knife because they keep searching people. I won't carry a knife. That's how we stop this.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I've often said, look, I've got to tell you right from the outset, I have a lot of black friends. I have a lot of black guys that follow my channels, and especially for the watches. I talk a lot about watches, and, look, their lives are equally important as everyone else's. Absolutely. And I just, it breaks my heart to see young black men dying in the numbers that they're dying. And if I was a black parent right now, I'd be saying, yes, please keep my children safe on the streets. And if we have to search people, we have to search them. But one way or another, we've got to stop the killing.
We do. And the reason why we don't at the moment is because senior police officers and senior politicians say to themselves, I would like to crack down on knife crime, but to do that, I'm going to be called a racist. And that will affect my career. I'm not prepared to do that. So I'm looking after myself first. And if that means young black boys are dying on the streets, so be it, because my career, my pension comes before anything else. I call that cowardice. And then we've got the race baiters in the communities, the so-called community leaders. And let me tell you about those so-called community leaders. Who elected them? No one elected them. The self-proclaimed community leaders. That's why we need a democratic vote in each neighborhood, so we can get rid of the race baiters who only care about themselves, their status, their reputation, and earning money on the deaths of young black men. And let's look at Black Lives Matter. They make money and fraudulently steal it from the deaths of young black men. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of these race baiters.
Absolutely. Oh, I couldn't agree more. At the end of the day, Look, I'm afraid these cheap labels, as soon as you dare even mention anything that might have a point, these cheap labels get thrown at you. They've been thrown at me. They'll be thrown at you. But these people, they're actually the extremists. They're actually the ones doing the damage, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
We should all be singing from the same song sheet.
We should be a safe society where we all can live in. Who doesn't want a safe society?
Yeah.
But we have these individuals who would rather have anarchy because anarchy gives them a purpose in life. Anarchy gives them a social status of being a community leader. And they're only interested in them and their careers, just like the politicians are, the ones without the backbone. They do exactly the same, but a different way. And I want people in this country, I want leaders and I want politicians in this country who put the country first, who put the people first. And if that means you've got to sacrifice your political career for doing the right thing, well, that's what you should do. How dare you take the chicken's way out just so you can prolong your career? It's about public service. And that's what we need to get back to.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that annoys me with the police, they often, they'll say we're acting on orders. We look at what's been happening in London with the demos and all over the UK, really. And the police, they always say, well, we're only doing what we're told to do. At what stage does a police? One of the questions that I always have for individual police officers, and I know a few, I say to them, at what point do you stand back and say, I'm not doing that? That's just not right. That's against my moral ethics and beliefs. I mean, is that even a possibility that one day a police officer will go, that's not for me. That's not the job description that I signed up to?
No, and to a certain extent, they shouldn't do that. It's not the police's job to start interpreting law, interpreting morality and what they should do and what they shouldn't do. A police officer's job is to follow orders. Now, who do we criticize for that? We criticize the top police officers.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond that. The top police officers take their directions from elected officials, from politicians. And that's how it should be, because we then, the general public, get to influence who those politicians are. So when the police are failing, we need to go all the way up the chain to the police crime commissioner. So in Manchester, Greater Manchester, it's the mayor, but everywhere else have got police crime commissioners. They're the people we hold responsible. They're the people who can sack the chief constable. They're the people who write the strategies on how you should be policing the Free Palestine marches. They're the people who write the policies on if police should be knocking on your door about hurty words on Twitter. The buck stops with the police crime commissioner, and they always keep their heads down. It's a cushy number being a police crime commissioner because no one knows you exist. Yeah. You're on 80, 90 grand a year, and you've got no responsibility because no one knows you have responsibility. We need to start sacking at the polling booth police crime commissioners and get people in there who are willing to do the job and willing to get the police to work better. It always ends up with politicians who we need to hold responsible.
Do you get the feeling that we're at the very beginnings, perhaps, of a political revolution in the UK?
Oh, absolutely. You can smell the change in the air. I'd say it started with Black Lives Matter in 2020. Up to then, most people had never heard of critical race theory. Most people felt things were being unfair in this country, and there was an anti-white sentiment, and lots of people were anti-British, including the institutions, including politicians, but they couldn't point to anything, and it was quite complicated to voice that. But then from Black Lives Matter onwards and the trans thing, people are waking up now going, I'm not having any of this. And the more people speak up, like me, like you, the more we're giving other people courage for them to speak up. And just look what's happened last couple of days. A couple of days ago, the NHS have come out and said, we're not giving puberty blockers to trans children anymore now because it doesn't work and it damages them. The next day, Keir Starmer, who last year didn't know what a woman was, last year he only thought 99% of women don't have penises, where we know the answer is 100%, but he thought it was a 99%. He came out 2 days ago saying trans women shouldn't be competing in women's sports. People are changing their opinions because the mass majority of people now in this country are waking up, and politicians always want votes. Politicians will do what the masses say when the masses say, we're not voting for you unless you do these things. There's a huge change coming. It's going to take several years, and things will get worse before they get better. But things are definitely changing.
We saw in Rochdale recently what I would consider to be a high level of sectarian voting.
Mm.
Do you think that that will play a role in the election that you're taking place in for Mayor of Manchester?
I hope it does, because it will damage Labour. It will damage Andy Burnham. I spoke to a member of George Galloway's party the other day and asked them, will you be standing someone for mayor? Because if they do, they haven't got a chance of winning. But if they do, they may take a couple of 100,000 votes off Andy Burnham, which only benefits me.
Yeah.
So that's me being selfish. Should we be going down this path of sectarian voting? Absolutely not. This is the worst thing we can do. How did that work out for Northern Ireland?
Yeah.
We're splitting into tribes. We've spent 50 years now splitting blacks against whites, Muslims against Christians, gays against straights. This will only end up in civil unrest and violence if we don't stop it.
Yeah.
Not all Muslim people are the same. So why do we think they're all going to vote for the same policies, the same parties? And when we start forcing people to do that, we tribalize them.
Yeah.
And all tribes fight against other tribes. We need to avoid this. We need to start bringing people together under the nation state, under the umbrella, the Union Jack flag,
Absolutely.
under the monarchy. So we all belong. We can all be different, have different religions, slightly different cultures, different beliefs, different moralities to a certain extent, but we all have to come under an umbrella. Yeah. Otherwise, we're not the same. And if we're not the same, we class them as our enemy.
We have to have a common belief. We have to have a common belief of values, of morals, of family life, of the way of life. And like you say, just come under the flag and just be happy and proud to be British.
And is that a lot to ask? It's not, is it? No. 50 years ago, this would have been common sense. Yeah. Now it's, well, I don't want to be under the British flag because I'm not British. But you were born here, and you've got a British passport, and you've got no intentions of leaving. All you're doing is treating this country as a hotel until a better hotel turns up somewhere else. And that is destroying.
And by the way, that hotel's ain't going to turn up anyway. Because this is the best country in the world. I still believe it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Without a question. Something else that really interested me. It's a statement in your manifesto again. Sack senior police officers who failed the victims of grooming gangs. I mean, this is a controversial, unfortunately, it's a controversial topic. It shouldn't be. It should be a common sense topic.
Yeah.
But it's controversial. Tell us a little bit more about that.
People keep asking me, will I do another review into grooming gangs in Greater Manchester? And my answer is no, I'm doing no reviews. Why? Every review says exactly the same thing. What we need is action. We don't need 2-3 years of writing another report on what went on. We know what went on. I'm sick of it. I want some action. We need to change the institutions. And how do you change the police? We change the police by giving them skin in the game. So I'm going to set up a panel with people like Maggie Oliver and other people on board. And we're going to go through every report from Greater Manchester about the grooming gang scandal. And we're going to highlight senior officers in those reports. And if they still are serving officers in Greater Manchester Police, we're going to sack them for dereliction of duty. They can take us to court. They may win in court for unfair dismissal and we'll have to pay him off. Absolutely fine. But that then sends a message through Greater Manchester and the country that the days of you abandoning our children to rape and you getting away with it and you thinking you're going to keep your job, those days are over, mate. Yeah. Because if you don't protect our children, you will be sacked. Now, I'm quite willing to go to court and explain that and pay people off if we've sacked him illegally. We'll just pay him off because we've got to get the police working better and give them skin in the game in things like this.
It's my belief, I've got to say, it's my belief that there are serving police officers out there right now in high positions, council officials, that actually need bringing to book properly. Because they have, like you say, they've neglected our children. There can really, for me, be no greater crime than to neglect your children. Doesn't matter where they come from.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they look like. All of our children are our futures and the future of our nation. And if we can't look after them, what does that say about us?
Absolutely. A dying society doesn't protect its children, doesn't protect its women. And we don't protect children and women anymore in this country.
Yeah.
You know, we allow them to be abused. We allow them to be victims of violence, and men will just watch now. And it's not completely men's fault. You know, feminism destroyed lots of our social norms about protecting children, protecting women. It wasn't that long ago where if there was an emergency, men would shout women and children first.
Yeah.
And we would assault men who try to break that rule by getting out first. But now it's, well, women are equal to us and women are just as strong as men. So now, you know, feminism brought some of this upon women themselves. But I don't care for the excuses. I want to fix things and protecting children. And you're right. I mean, if we can find some officers to prosecute, that'd be great. But I know we can't. So rather than spending years trying to prosecute officers and spending years and millions and failing, I want action now. And we can sack officers within a couple of months of me taking power. And I want action. I don't want long drawn out discussions again and court cases. Let's get some action so the rest of the country can understand that from now on, we protect our children.
People of Manchester, are you listening to this? You've got the chance to put your cross in the box for this man that's going to make a big, massive change for a magnificent, wonderful city. Here's your chance. Don't blow it. You know, I mean, look, people say sometimes that, oh, I'll vote for this guy. You know, it's going to be wasted. Look, we've been wasting our goddamn votes for years, Nick.
Yeah, we have. We keep voting,
taking chances.
We keep voting for the same people, and then we complain that they do the same things.
Exactly.
Well, stop voting for the same people.
Yeah.
You know, vote for me. Vote for one of the smaller parties. Vote for another independent. You don't have to vote for me, but first of all, make sure you vote, because most people don't vote. So they're the biggest problem. The people who go, "Oh, I can't be bothered. I don't know who to." Well, you're the problem in this society. If you started voting, politicians would pay you attention and start doing things you want them to do. But because you don't vote, they can ignore you because you're nothing anymore now. You gave up your ability to influence anything. And the people who just vote Labour because my dad voted Labour, or I'll vote Conservative because it's the only opposition to Labour. No, pick someone else. And they may not win. I may not win. But let's say I don't win, but I do well. Well, maybe other politicians will go, that Nick Buckley did okay, didn't he, in Greater Manchester? And he's a nobody. Can you imagine what I'll do if I pinch all these policies?
Yeah.
Well, if they pinch my policies, fantastic. Yeah. I don't necessarily want to be a politician. I don't necessarily want to take the credit for my ideas. I just want my country to get better. Yeah. And if someone steals my policies and implements them, fantastic. You can have them. Well done. I just want my country to get better. So me standing and talking about these things and people voting for me may change our country, even if I don't win. And that's a win-win for me.
I think one of the things that always confuses us Southern softies, right, is that, you know, I just can't get my head around why Labour still has such strong working class grassroots support in the north of England, because they are not the Labour Party of old. I mean, my dad was a Labour man. He was a trade unionist back in the 1960s and the 1970s. That Labour Party that he belonged to is dead, buried, and a million miles away from the reality of the Labour Party today. And, you know, my message to the people of the North is, wake up. Why are you still voting for a party that is a myth?
I think most people who you described then, most of them now don't vote. That is the problem. It isn't that they now keep voting Labour. It's the amount of people in the mayoral election last time, 2/3 of people didn't even vote. So that's the issue.
Crazy.
It is. And the biggest con the elite played on us, the working class people, was to convince us our vote doesn't matter. And the reason why they played that trick on us is because they know our vote does matter. And once they gave us the vote, they've done all they can to shut us up, to keep us at home on polling day, watching Coronation Street, on welfare, to keep our mouths shut. That was the deal we signed with them. You keep us on benefits and we won't vote. And it's like, that's a deal I want to break, People died to get us a vote in this country. And every adult who doesn't vote is a disgrace because you're letting everybody else down. But again, part of the answer will be, who did they vote for? Because all our politicians are exactly the same. They're just different sides of the same coin. You vote Labour and you get all these policies. Vote Conservative, you get the same policies. They're just repackaged differently. But these people need to start getting angry. That's why I think things will get worse before they get better.
Yeah, I agree.
If things get worse, people will eventually go, I can't have this anymore now. I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to get off my backside, me and my wife, and I'm going to vote for the first time, like they did in Brexit to get Brexit. It was the people who didn't normally vote turned up to vote. And when those people are mobilized, they can change the country. 2/3 of people don't vote. That means they can choose. If they all voted for the same person, that their candidate would win. But we keep the elite keep tricking them into, you're powerless, you're stupid, stay at home. And they need to understand their vote is the most powerful thing they have.
Like I said, I mean, look, what a chance for the people of Manchester to come along, send out a message. We're sick of the Tories. We're sick of the Labour Party. We're sick of the Lib Dems. We're sick of the Greens. Give Nick a try. Give you a go.
But those messages are getting out there because at the Rochdale by-election, the person who came second was an independent called David Tully. He beat all the other parties. So the independent people are looking at independence now more than they ever done before because the main parties are failing everybody.
Something else I noticed in your manifesto, and a problem that we have a lot here in Brighton, and there's something that I've tried to deal with myself in the past, is homelessness, people on the street. What's the problem like up there in Manchester?
People who come to Manchester from London always say, God, it's worse here, isn't it, than in London? That's what people from London tell me.
Wow.
Now, part of the problem is Manchester's smaller than London, and our problem is concentrated in Manchester city centre. So because London's a lot bigger and you have lots more mini city centres, your problem's more spread out. So London does have a bigger problem. Ours just looks bigger. It's a national disgrace. It's a national. I'm ashamed of everybody who lives in this country for allowing this to happen, for us allowing our fellow citizens to live and die in the streets. We have to take responsibility for this. And the reason why we don't is because deep down inside, 99.9% of people don't care. They think they do. Yeah, they might throw a couple of coins into a cup, but they never demonstrate. Have you ever seen a demonstration on the streets about rough sleeping? Do you know anybody who's ever voted to their local councillor or an MP and demanded change? No, because deep down inside, no one really cares. Yeah. I care because I've been working with rough sleepers for 2 decades. What we need to do is we need to understand the problem. There's 2 problems now. We have broken British people who have got severe mental health issues and medicate with drugs. That's one problem. Yeah. We've also got a new problem now over the last 10 years, and it's illegal immigrants. Asylum seekers, failed asylum seekers, illegal immigrants who've got nowhere to stay and sleep on the streets. So we've got 2 types of problems now. I don't care who you are, you should never be on the streets. In Greater Manchester, rough sleeping is getting worse. The official stats from the Mayor's office tell us now it's increasing again. He reduced it a little bit in his first term, but it's increasing again. And the reason why he's not ended it is because the more you give people 1-bedroom flats, the more people who turn up in Greater Manchester wanting a bedroom, wanting a 1-bedroom flat. So it's a difficult position to be in. But just because a problem's difficult doesn't mean there's no solution. I've got a solution. I've already published my 4-point plan, how I will completely 100% end rough sleeping in Greater Manchester in 1 year. 1 year, that's all it will take. It just takes I keep saying politician with a backbone. That's all it takes. It just takes someone with a great determination to do it, to not worry about being called nasty, not worry about being called different names because you're trying to get people off the street. Because that's what happens. The amount of times I've been called, my charity has been hashtagged nasty charity because I tell people don't give money to people on the streets, don't give food to people on the streets. All it does is encourage them to stay on the streets. It doesn't help. The only help we need to give people on the streets is to get them off the streets. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what we should be concentrating on. And it's difficult, and it's going to get some poor headlines, but I don't care about poor headlines if I'm getting people off the streets. I've got hundreds of people off the streets in the past. I've got many of them jobs once we've got them off the streets. I've done this for 20 years. I know how to get people off the streets.
A lot of the problems I see here in Brighton, they seem to be drug related. And I'm not always personally sure, Nick, if I'm honest, that some of these people actually want to get off the street. You know, some of them, it seems to be that that is now their lifestyle. They accept it. They have a small group of friends, and they're happy, or happy as they can be.
Yeah, two things there. The first thing is, most of the people you see on the streets are not love sleeping. They have accommodation. They go to the streets. They're begging every day for money for drugs. They're drug addicts, and that's how they earn their money for drugs. I would say that somewhere between, I did a survey 4 or 5 years ago in Manchester city centre, and we worked out 65% of people who looked like they were homeless weren't homeless. They had accommodation. How do we know? They told us. We sat down with them speaking to them. They just begged for money for drugs. The problem's a lot smaller than it looks. And then I get this all the time. There's certain people who have made a lifestyle choice to live on the streets and can't be helped. I don't buy into that at all. Nobody wants to be on the streets. What we mean when we say it's a lifestyle choice, what we mean is the services we're offering them are not good enough. So they would rather stay on the streets.
Yeah.
That's how bad our services are, that somebody would rather stay on the streets and accept the help and support on offer. So what we need to do is stop blaming those individuals. What we need to do is start looking at the service and going, these aren't fit for purpose. How about we start introducing some customer service into these services? If people won't accept your service, well, you're not offering a good service, are you? You should be having people demanding your services, just like we do in the private sector. Just like when you've got something wrong, with your gas boiler and British Gas turn up. They treat you well, they treat you with respect, they give you the service you're paying for. I want homeless people to be treated exactly the same, to be giving an excellent service that I'm paying for on their behalf. But we don't. We say to them, this is what we can offer you, take it or leave it. And some will go, I'll leave it, thanks, because that's crap, I'm not accepting that.
Nick, it's been wonderful talking to you. Before you go, a final message to the people of Manchester. Look, you've got a chance. What's your message, mate?
My message is, I'm going to need your help and support. I'm going to need your help and support at grassroots level if I'm going to win. So I need you to follow me on social media, Nick Buckley, MBE. I'm on everything. Share my posts. But most of all, speak to your family and friends in Greater Manchester, because that means a lot more to them than reading something about me online. And I need people talking about me, going, here's a normal guy. Here's a guy who's going to do what he says he's going to do. And he's going to open the books. He's going to tell you all the problems. He's going to hold civil servants account. And he doesn't want to be a politician. I'm a non-politician politician. I'm only doing it because I'm trying to save my country. And if you
I've always said the worst person to become a politician is someone that wants to be a politician.
Absolutely. And I realized this when I used to work with children. The people who want to be youth workers are the people who shouldn't be youth workers, because they're normally trying to fix their own childhood, memories of their childhood by working with children, and they turn out to be the worst youth workers.
People in Manchester, you got your chance. You got a choice. I know where I'll be putting my vote. It's a shame I can't move up to Manchester for the month and give you a vote and come back down south. But listen, Nick, I wish you all the very best. Do me one favour. Win, lose or draw, come back and speak to us afterwards and let us know how it all went.
Absolutely. That's a guarantee. If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell and comment. And if you like what I'm saying about running for Mayor of Greater Manchester, then stick around. Tell your family, tell your friends. The only way I'm going to have a chance of winning is a grassroots movement. So be part of that movement and hit that bell. Thanks.